Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Sandy Bob Show for December 17th, 2019. The title of today's show is The Secret Life of Soul, The Real You. Before I begin today's show, I want to remind all listeners to sing New You, You, You for 15 minutes in the morning and again before bed at night. You can then call on the Real Guides to show you what is real, and they will answer any question you may have. I want to emphasize that knowledge, faith, belief, hope, and obedience to any religion will get you nothing but endless lifetimes of reincarnation. The Real Guides are your one and only link to higher truth. Unless you have awareness of the all is and the real side of life beyond creation, you will always remain in creation. You are sound asleep spiritually. Okay, I'm going to start out. There are many ideas floating around today about what soul really is, and which I hope to address and clarify. There are many who believe they have a soul, but cannot really explain what it is. Scientists are constantly looking for the God particle, quote unquote, and have gone to great expense to find it. Some say you are soul, but cannot offer any more detail. So let's start today's show by looking at some references to soul that may shed some light on this. I will cite a few examples and then point out the meaning of key statements. We start by looking at the book of Genesis in the Bible. Genesis 2:7. And the Lord God formed man of the dust of the ground and breathed into his nostrils the breath of life, and man became a living soul. Okay, my comment is when the physical body of man is first created or when he is born, then soul enters into or incarnates into that human form. He becomes a living soul. Soul is not present unless the person is alive. Jesus inferred that there is a difference between a person and a soul. In Matthew 10:28, Jesus says, and fear not them which kill the body, but are not able to kill the soul, but rather fear him which is able to destroy both soul and body in hell. From this statement, it can be seen that there is a part of you that is distinct and separate from the body. The Apostle Paul adds to this the concept of soul with the following statement in 1 Corinthians 3:16. He says, know ye not that ye are the temple of God, and that the Spirit of God dwelleth in you? Here the Apostle Paul states that human beings are a temple in which the Spirit of God dwells, and for some reason the person he was addressing did not know that. So we see that soul is inside a living being, but is distinct and separate from the body. Now we are introduced to the idea that the Spirit of God also exists inside a living being. So what, if any, connection is there between soul and the Spirit of God? And what about human spirit? Where does that fit into the scheme of things? If we can solve this mystery, then we can begin to understand what life is really about. In order to delve into the subject more deeply, it is necessary to refer to additional sources of information. The Tibetan Lama T. Lobsang Rampa introduced some eye-opening information in his book, You Forever. Here you are introduced to the idea of an overself. Starting on page 57 of his book, I quote Rampa. He says, the human body, consisting of molecules with a certain amount of space between atoms, also houses other bodies, tenuous bodies, spirit bodies, or what we call astral bodies. These tenuous bodies are precisely the same as to composition as the human body, that is, they consist of molecules. But just as earth or lead or wood consists of a certain arrangement of molecules of a certain density, spirit bodies have their molecules fewer and farther between each. Thus, it is quite possible for a spirit body to fit into a flesh body in the most intimate contact, and neither occupies the space needed by the other. The astral and physical body are connected by the silver cord. This latter is a mass of molecules vibrating at a tremendous speed. It is in some ways similar to the umbilical cord, which connects the mother to her baby. In the mother, impulses, impressions, and nourishment flow from her to the unborn baby. Excuse me. When the baby is born and the umbilical cord is severed, then the baby dies to the life it knew before. That is, it becomes a separate entity, a separate life. It is no longer a part of the mother, so it dies as part of the mother and takes on its own existence. The silver cord connects the overself and the human body, and impressions flash from one to the other during every minute of the flesh body's existence. Impressions, commands, lessons, and at times even spiritual nourishment come down from the overself to the human body. When death takes place, the silver cord is severed, and the human body is left like a discarded suit of clothes while the spirit moves on. This is not the place to go into the matter, but it should be stated that there are a number of spirit bodies. We are dealing with the flesh body and the astral body at present. In all, in our present form of evolution, there are 9 separate bodies, each connected to the other by a silver cord. A human being, then, is a spirit briefly encased in a body of flesh and bones, encased in order that lessons may be learned and experiences undergone, experiences which could not be obtained by the spirit without the use of a body. Our flesh body is a vehicle which is driven or manipulated by the overself. Some prefer to use the term soul. We use overself because it is more convenient. The soul is a different matter and actually goes to an even higher realm. The overself is the controller, the driver of the body. The brain is a relay station, a telephone exchange, a completely automated factory, if you like. It takes messages from the overself and converts the overself commands into chemical activity or physical activity which keeps the vehicle alive, muscles to work, and causes certain mental processes. It also relays back to the overself. Excuse me. It also relays back to the overself messages and impressions of experiences gained. Excuse me. I got to get a drink. Excuse me. Rampa continues this idea in chapter 27, where he speaks about our subconscious. We are really 2 people in one. One of these people is a little person, a ninth the size of the other, an active little person who likes to interfere, likes to be bossy, likes to control. The other person, the subconscious, is likened to an amiable giant without reasoning power, for the conscious mind has reason and logic but no memory. The subconscious mind cannot use reason and has no logic, but it is the seat of memory. Everything that has ever happened to a person, even things that happened before birth, are retained in the subconscious. Between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, there is what we might call a screen, which effectively blocks off all information from the conscious mind. It means that the conscious mind cannot just probe around in the subconscious at any time. This, of course, is absolutely necessary because one would eventually contaminate the other. We have 2 rules to remember. The subconscious mind is without reason. Therefore, it can only act upon suggestion as given to it. It can only retain in memory any statement, true or untrue, which is given to it. It is not able to evaluate whether that information is true or false. The conscious mind can only concentrate upon one idea at a time. You will really appreciate that all the time we are receiving impressions, forming opinions, seeing things, hearing things, and touching things. If the subconscious mind were unprotected, then everything would pour in and we would have our memories cluttered with quite useless information, frequently incorrect information. Between the subconscious mind and the conscious mind, there is a screen that can block off those matters which have to be considered by the conscious before they can be passed on to the subconscious for filing. The conscious mind then, limited to considering one thought at a time, selects a thought, accepts or rejects it in light of reason or logic. So what we have in a few short paragraphs, Rampa has hinted at the answer to one of life's greatest mysteries. As we shall see, there is our little self or our personal self, the part we think is really us, the part we grew up with and has our name, but in reality is more like a space probe with a mechanical brain sent into the physical worlds of cause and effect creation to get experiences. And there is another part of us that is a silent observer watching everything we do. Now, for those who are open-minded to the truth, there is a religious capital of our solar system. It is the city of Retz and is located on the planet Venus. It is the only city in our entire solar system that has a presence in both the physical plane as well as the astral plane. There is a temple of golden wisdom there that teaches the laws of the supreme deity. I point this out because I want to share some of the teachings about soul as related by Amnek Onek, who at one time studied at this temple. I should also point out that there are several temples of golden wisdom on earth operating on the astral plane only, and you must have a personal invitation to travel there in your astral body, just as Jesus did for 2 years before returning to Jerusalem. Now, I'm going to quote Omnic, and I'm going to have Sandy say what Omnic had to say.
Thank you. Soul is a unit of awareness. It can know, be, and see. Much more cannot be said about its basic nature, except that in quality. Soul is a duplicate of the being called God. If you were to close your eyes and sit very still, away from noises and distractions, you will find one point in your body where you are most awake. Usually it's a spot in the center of the head, behind and between the eyes, which can be separate from and aware of the physical sensations, sounds, sights, thoughts, and feelings. We have an indescribable something which can observe all the things a person may falsely believe he is. This detached observer is soul, the real you. If you close your eyes and create the face of a friend on the screen of your mind, it would be soul that is looking at the picture. The mind is not looking because it is only the tool that is used to form and hold the image. By far the best way of finding out that you are soul is to leave the body in soul form while you are still living. This is called an out-of-the-body experience, and it proves that you are something beyond the physical body. It is useless to become involved in how old you are as soul, because soul itself exists beyond time and space. Counting the many lifetimes before this one, you are easily many millions of years old. Through all those lifetimes, you have remained the individual, and you will continue to be an individual after the last physical incarnation. The physical bodies, personalities, surroundings, and experiences may have changed, but always there was the real awareness, the real you, learning lessons and unfolding spiritually. To learn, grow, and awaken was the reason that soul came into the physical world in the first place eons ago.
Omnic goes on to explain that soul's journey into the physical world involved many other worlds beyond ours. Each of these worlds or planes of existence has a different rate of vibration or frequency. The matter in the world just beyond the physical is at so high a frequency that a person living there could easily pass through walls, mountains, and even people here. The highest sounds here, beyond detection by Earth scientists, are the lowest sounds in the plane beyond the physical universe. Omnet continues.
The worlds beyond have very much in common with the physical world, but they are all much more beautiful and heavenly. They too have all kinds of people, cities and villages, animals, plants, mountains, oceans, deserts, and sunsets. But in every imaginable way, these worlds are vastly more beautiful than the most advanced planets here. The colors are out of this world, so radiant and breathtaking that words cannot do justice to them. The universe, just one step beyond ours, is so beautiful that many people who live there after death mistakenly believe it is the ultimate heaven. I use a familiar analogy, to help explain how these worlds are designed. First, let us take a centrifuge, which is a scientific instrument that spins liquids at high speed. If we take a mixture of water, mud, sand, and stones and spin it at high speed in the centrifuge, the heavier materials will collect at the outer edge in order of their heaviness. As we look toward the center, we will see less and less gross materials until in the innermost area we find only air. The outermost layer can be thought of as the physical universe, the densest and the most material of all the universes. As we look towards the center, we find layers having finer and finer materials. These are like the worlds of time and space, where everything is at the higher frequencies. To a person living there, things are as real and solid as to us in the physical world. This is because the senses used there are at the same higher frequencies. Likewise, our physical senses cannot record objects and people there because physical senses were designed for use in the physical universe only. In the very center of the spinning liquid, where there is only air, can be compared to the pure spiritual worlds beyond time and space. These worlds are the home of soul and what religions call God, the ultimate reality. Soul originates in the pure, positive spiritual worlds beyond time and space, but it was born as an unconscious atom in this cosmic sea. The supreme deity itself is actually a void. It has no relationship to anything outside of it. That is why nothing can be said about it, but it can be experienced. The best thing to say is, it just is.
In case you are wondering why the Real Guides call the Supreme Deity the All-Is, it is because in order to describe something, you must compare it with something else. When there is nothing else to compare it with and nothing else exists, then nothing else can be said. It just is. It goes on to explain more about soul.
As an unconscious atom, when it was first created, soul did not know who it was, what the supreme deity was, why it existed, and what power it can control. It was asleep in this ocean of spirit and somehow needed to be awakened to the fact that it even existed. In order to provide soul with an opportunity to wake up, the supreme deity created the worlds of form, where the opposite of spirit exists, which we call the Kal, or the negative power. Their soul could be tested and purified in polarity until it became aware. There it could acquire the experiences necessary to awaken and then be a conscious atom separate from the body of God, and yet a part of it. It will then remain an individual being for all eternity. Soul exists naturally in the pure, positive spiritual worlds where there is no matter, energy, space, or time. Not a trace of the negative power exists here. These worlds are very real, but it is almost impossible to describe them with words because they're beyond the realm of the mind and its workings. To know them, a person must experience them for himself. The denser worlds are constructed as a school for soul to go through the creation of polarity and the negative power, Kal. Soul remains in these worlds of polarity, positive and negative, only temporarily until the schooling is accomplished and the soul graduates.
It goes on to explain that a soul descends into creation, it takes on a separate protective sheath or body at each level or plane. The highest created world or form world is the etheric plane, where the subconscious mind exists. Then you have the mental plane. The protective body on the mental plane is called the mental body or mind. Our mind is actually this body, and its energy appears as thought. Each of us has this body, for it is a tool soul uses to operate in the lower worlds. It has no life of its own, but depends on the energy soul allows it to have. Just below the mental plane is the causal plane, where soul picked up the still coarser causal body, which allows soul to have recall of past lives in the lower worlds. Below the causal plane, at a lower frequency, is the plane which plays the greatest part in people's physical lives, the astral plane. In any lifetime, your astral body is an exact duplicate of the physical body, only more beautiful. It is your astral body that registers emotions. Amnik continues.
Having all these bodies, soul entered the lowest plane to begin the experiences, which one day would lead to becoming a co-worker with the Supreme Deity. We all know it as the physical universe, where soul picked up the physical sheath or body, which is needed to survive here and begin its experiences. In the beginning, when you first entered the physical plane, you were not immediately in human form. For soul to have every possible experience, which everyone must have in order to be perfected, you need to experience every state of consciousness that this physical world has to offer. The first experiences that you had as soul had, or the first level of consciousness that you lived within, was that of the mineral state. Granted, minerals do not seem to be very aware as we think of it, but even the seemingly limited experiences possible by living in that mineral state are necessary as soul first begins to wake up and comprehend its physical existence. In the beginning, most of us were in the mineral state for a long, long time, depending on what experiences we needed. Of course, you were never a mineral or rock, but you as soul inhabited such bodies on your way up. After the mineral state and the experience and awareness at that level, soul begins to have experiences in the plant state. As a plant, soul can feel the sunshine and the wind and the rain, and it serves as food for the higher forms of life. After many lives and deaths as mosses, flowers, vegetables, and trees on Earth and other planets, soul is ready for the next step. It begins its lives in the animal state of consciousness. As an individual, soul will inhabit bodies that suit its own nature or individuality. Soul is the life force in the animal, but always remains a unique individual. It spends a great deal of time in the animal state of awareness, progressing from one species to another, from insects to reptiles to birds to mammals. These lives are not always on Earth, but on many different planets. The last stage of the physical unfoldment and the highest that soul can reach in the physical world is the human being. This is the divine apex of evolution in the physical universe, and it is the form soul uses to have its final experiences here. As a human being, soul must go through every possible experience. One lifetime is only a speck of time in evolution, much too brief a moment in the physical world to do all the learning and growing needed. Soul reincarnates as a human being over and over through millions of years in order to have all these experiences that it needs. Each of us has lived as many different characters, male and female, in as many different races, on a number of different planets, and in an almost uncountable number of circumstances and situations. Each time that we return, we arrive with a new body and a new mind.
Thank you, Sandy. According to Rampa, the Tibetan Lama, once we begin our cycles of reincarnation as humans, we begin our school lessons. He says that each lesson is for a period of 72,000 years and involves reincarnations on Earth as well as other planets. The reason the lower form worlds are called cause and effect worlds is because everything we do has repercussions. It is known as the law of karma. One reason why karma is misunderstood by some is that karma does not call for immediate payback like the banking systems do. The payback of a good or evil deed may not take place for many lifetimes, and after the memory of that lifetime is erased to the individual's consciousness, but it's still not erased from his subconscious. The purpose of the cow power, contrary to popular religious belief, is to instigate people into doing things that they may not otherwise do in order for them to experience karmic payback and get their necessary experiences. Fortunately, after enough lifetimes, soul finally catches on to what life is about and doesn't fall for the tricks of the negative power.